Hi, my name is Michael Idarecis, and this video is about the difference between a feminist and a real woman. And where we're going to find this difference is in some place where a lot of people, I'm surprised nobody's ever made a video on this, and especially the MGTOW guys, going your own way, you figure you'd find this. And we know the feminists are not going to do it, but we figured the MGTOW guys should have done it. This is in the Bible. That's right. The Bible has a story in the book of Esther that discusses a hardcore feminist, and her name is Vashti, and then you have a real woman, and her name is Esther. And actually, the book of the Bible, this book of the Bible, in the Bible, is actually named after Esther. So for those women out there that think, the Bible is a misogynist book that doesn't, have any good stories about women, Esther is a phenomenal book. And I'll tell you more about that later. Let me get to the bottom line. So what did Vashti do? Well, Esther, the first chapter of Esther starts off with the King Ahasuerus, who is reigning from Hodu even unto Cush. He's, in a sense, throwing a party. Okay, he's making a banquet. He hath made a banquet to all his heads. This is verse 3. In the 3rd year of his reign, so he's been reigning for 3 years, he hath made a banquet to all his heads and his servants of the force of Persia and Media, the chiefs and heads of the provinces before him, in his showing the wealth of the honor of his kingdom and the glory of the beauty of the greatness, many days, 80 and 100 days. Okay, now if you notice, he used the chief heads. Now we know that the heads from one of my previous videos is the head of the saved, not just a man's head. Someone who is of Christ, who's got the head of Christ, can be considered a head. It could be man or woman. But we'll follow the story. Let's say it's men for now. And then we go down a few verses, and we go down to verse 8. And the drinking is according to law, none is pressing, for so hath the king appointed for every chief one of his house to do according to the pleasure of man and man. Now, keep in mind that the man of God is also someone with the, Christ rising up. So, also Vashti, here she comes, verse 9, the queen hath made a banquet for women in the royal house that the King Ahasuerus hath. So, right away we finding out that the king was the king, and this was his house before they got married, because it says it's flat out. Also Vashti the queen hath made a banquet for women in the royal house that the King Ahasuerus has. So she's going to throw a party the same day, on the same day. And this is a banquet for women. Well, what better place? Get all the feminists together, and they'll have a party at the same time the king is having his party. Okay. So it goes on a little bit more, and then we get to the part about verse 10. On the 7th day, well, actually it's the next verse. The heart of the king is glad with wine. He hath said to Mechuan, Bistha, Bermoda, Bigtha, whatever the name, and Abagtha, Zythar, and Carcass, and Carcass, and 7 eunuchs who are ministering in the presence of the King Ahasuerus. Eunuchs, interesting. Eunuch is another word for like a monk. To bring in Vashti the queen before the king with a royal crown, to show the peoples and the heads her beauty. For she is of good appearance, and the queen Vashti refuseth. Refuseth to come in at the word of the king, that by the hand of the eunuchs, and the king is very wroth, and his fury hath burned to him. Okay, so he is furious now. Why? Because he has an attractive feminist, And what does she say? I'm not coming. She's not listening. Okay, so we already know that this attractive feminist does not like authority. The very authority that made her queen, because she wasn't queen until he brought her in. It was his house already. We already determined that. So if you look at that, she did not want to follow through on the will of the king. Now, some women are going to say, yeah, but why does he have to say? Why do we have to listen? Look, I've said this before. When you have a body, the head is the masculine, the torso is the feminine. So when the head says heartbeat, the heart is supposed to beat. So in this case, he's the king. He's the big head. So if he's the big head and he tells you to come, you gotta go. That's the bottom line. So now let's look at Esther. I don't want to spend any more time with her. Now, this is a fantastic story. And in this story, it's found out that Haman, the bad guy, is trying to kill all the Jews. And Esther is actually Jewish. So she's going to plead for her life. So she's going to show up to the king at the palace. And there's a rule that you can't come to the king without being announced. If he didn't call for you, you can't come in. Okay, that's the rule. And if you do come in, you have a great possibility that if he does not extend, he carries a scepter. If he does not, like let's say, extend the scepter to you, you could be killed. And it doesn't matter who you are. So we'll start off with verse 5, and then we're going to get to the most powerful part of Esther and being like the most fantastic woman. A role model. Unbelievable. But again, she's a role model because of her spirit. Not because she just looks good. Not just because she does stuff for you. It's the spirit that we got to look at. And it cometh to pass, verse 5, and it cometh to pass on the third day that Esther putteth on royalty, and standeth in the inner court of the house of the king, over against the house of the king. And the king is sitting on his royal throne in the royal house over against the opening of the house. Okay, so, this is the royal throne. We got the king. He's sitting on it. Okay? We got the king sitting on his royal throne, right? Alright, what happens next? And it cometh to pass, the king, seeing Esther and the queen standing in the court, she hath received grace in his eyes. Now look, when we look at eyes, we're thinking like regular eyes, but you got to remember, when we're looking at eyes, we got to talk about the identity. Okay, so she received grace in his identity. And why grace? Because she came in unannounced and she could be killed for that. And that's the law of the land. That's not, he'd have to abide by that law because of the other people in his court as well. And the king holdeth out to Esther the golden scepter. So now you got this golden scepter here. And the king, what he did is, he kind of held it out for her. So he held it out. That means that she lives. Okay? She lives. He held it out and says, you live. Okay? Which is great. Now here it comes. Hold it out. All right, let me start from there. And it cometh to pass that the king, seeing Esther, the queen, standing in the court, she hath received grace in his eyes, and the king holdeth out to Esther the golden scepter. Okay, we got that so far. That in his hand. You notice, it made a reference that it is in his hand. His possession. All right, now you might think, how's that important? Well, and Esther draweth near. So now we have Esther, again, drawing, she draweth near. She draweth near. And toucheth, and here she goes now, and she toucheth the top. So her hand is there on the top of the scepter, the golden scepter. Whose hand is holding it? The king. Where's her hand? On top, touching the top. You know what the scepter is? The law. The law. This is a picture of God Almighty holding the scepter, the law of God. And where does she put her hand? On the top of it. Now, let's see what the next word is. And the king saith to her, What to thee, Esther, O queen, and what thy request? Unto half of the kingdom, and it is given to thee. So right there and there, God Almighty would give her half the kingdom. And you know why? Because she's a real woman. Because you know what a feminist does? The feminist, this is exactly what the feminist does. Let me show it to you clear. If this is the scepter, okay? This is the king's hand, all right, holding the scepter, right? All right? What would the feminist do? She would try to hold on. She would try to hold on to the law. That's what she wants, because she wants a name. That's what the feminist would do. She would fight to hold on to the law. That's not her place. That's not her gig. No. What God is demonstrating in the book of Esther is that Esther is above the law. She is above the law. Now, some people say, should you treat a woman like a princess or a queen? Well, I tell you, not all women are princesses and queens, no matter what they tell you. But if you find a woman like this, who understands this, puts her hand on top and not fighting for this, because you see, this is the judgment. She wants to be the one in control. She wants to be the I am of God. And that's what Vashti did. Vashti wanted to have her own party, her whole own name. She wanted to be holding the law. Okay? It doesn't work like that. Anyway, this is a quick video. Check out the book of Esther. The book of Esther is a fantastic story. And if you want to know exactly what's going on in the entire kingdom, meaning from all time, that one book tells you everything. The Shushan, the palace, everything. The good guy, you find Satan in there. You find everybody. All the players are in there. Mordecai is Jesus. And Esther, who Esther is, this is the bride of Christ. And the bride of Christ is everyone who is saved in God. If you're saved in God, you are the bride of Christ. Your hand goes above the law. And that's why when you hear the feminist wants the name, is because she thinks that because her name is not in the Bible, or women's names are not in the Bible, that they need to become ahead. Well, if you're going to become ahead, you're going to do what Vashti did. And what they did with Vashti, they got rid of her. They didn't kill her, but they got rid of her. Anyway, my name again is Michael Idarecis, and check out the book of Esther. And if you're looking for a translation to read, the YLT is the most fantastic translation, and it's done by one man, and it was done in the 1880s. Absolutely spectacular. God bless.